Hello and welcome back to the Ovfm report. After the heroics of Gameweek 1, which saw many new rising stars shining early on, plus some of the old guard picking up where they left off, it's now time to look at this critical time in the season in which managers can look back and say, we've won and lost the season at these type of games. This week, we bring you 4 headliner games with local bragging rights up for grabs and early title favourites colliding so early on in both the Premiership and the Championship. Our first headliner game features a city which is divided in two, with a Battle of Manchester taking place. It is, of course, Manchester City versus Manchester United. Before we begin this preview, though, I would like to address the elephant in the room that we covered Manchester City last week in Game Week 1. However, a game as big as this was too big not to headline a game week. So, with that being said, let's start right where we left off with Manchester City, who are one of the few teams in the Premier League to have a perfect record this season. Following a 5-2 win at St James's Park and a 2-1 win at Anfield, City will walk into Old Trafford expecting 3 points with the form they have possessed this season. As of possible players to watch out for, well, of course, similar to last week, Gabriel Jesus and Kevin De Bruyne have stolen the show in Week 1 as lethal options for the attacking front for the Sky Blues. Talking now about Manchester United, well, this is the first time we have covered them this season, and it has been a roller coaster for manager John and his team. They've both deservedly won a game and both very much deservedly lost a game, with a 5-1 win at Old Trafford over Brighton and a 4-1 loss at the hands of Wolves at Molineux. As for new players, well, they have brought in an influx of new players, with the key players being Marnie and Van Dijk from Liverpool for a combined fee of £130 million. Fraser Forster comes in from Southampton, and Billy Gilmore joins from Norfolk side Norwich. The Reds certainly have a big ask to get a result out of Manchester City, but I'm sure the typical United expectations will be enough to motivate them to get a win over their fierce rivals. I think this game will be a close game between two bitter rivals, but ultimately, blue does look stronger than red. Final score for me, Manchester City 3, Manchester. Now we turn our attention to our first headliner game of the week in the Championship, which sees the only two sides in the Ovfm today not to base in England going head to head. It is, of course, the infamous South Wales derby as Swansea take on Cardiff. This is, of course, the 4th time in Ovfm history this game has taken place, with Swansea currently having the bragging rights following a 3-0 win way back in Season 5. Let's look at the teams then, starting with the visitors. The Swans have had every possible result in Game Week 1, with currently 1 win, 1 draw and 1 loss. Bear in mind, of course, this was wrote just before the end of the game week. The draw currently is OFM's only 0-0 this season so far against Nottingham Forest, so it's definitely one that you probably don't want on your resume, but Swans have it this season so far. As for the squad itself, well, manager Keane had only made one sign-in, but it was a big one, with Mason Greenwood joining from Manchester United for just under £15 million. As a result of the superstar signing, he's definitely expected to be the danger man for the Swans, both in this game and throughout the season. Looking now at the Bluebirds, who struggled in Game Week 1, securing only 1 win from 4 games, meaning they currently reside in the lower mid-table of the Championship. Despite this, many argue that this is not a true reflection of the Bluebirds this season. They've played some very informed sides, such as, of course, Huddersfield and West Bromwich Albion. Both of those sides look very talented this season. Looking at the Bluebirds squad itself, like their South Wales partners, they've not made much activity in the transfer window, with just Minamino and Curtis Jones being involved in a swap deal for their former key striker, Kiefer Moore, over to Liverpool. All in all, it's two sides who have got potential to be someone this season in the Championship and want to have one up on each other in the battle of supremacy in Wales. Prediction for the final score, Cardiff 2, Swansea City 2. Back to the Premier League, which features another fierce rivalry, this time in London. Similar to last week's matchup, our focus this time is on the other half of North London taking on East London. It is, of course, Tottenham versus West Ham. The matchup itself will be critical for both sides, as West Ham and Tottenham have both less than expected in Game Week 1, with Tottenham going exactly 50-50 with 1 win and 1 loss. On the flip side, West Ham only have 1 point to their name following a very close 2-2 draw against last week headliners Chelsea, and of course their 1-0 loss against Crystal Palace. Let's firstly take a look at Tottenham, who brought in Fabinho from Liverpool over the transfer window to the already strong Tottenham side. But the likes of Harry Kane, Heung-min Son and Lloris, the Spurs certainly have the ability to bring home a strong finish this season, but the question on everyone's mind, can they do it, or will they Spurs it like usual? As for the visitors, The Irons, they surprisingly didn't bring anyone in from the transfer window despite seeing an influx of players leave the East London outfit. With the likes of Noble, Fabianski and Kufau leaving, it left plenty of room for improvement for the East London outfit. Despite this, they decided against signing and potentially leave options open for the mid-season transfer window. Overall, expect the main threat to come from Mikel Antonio up front, who continues to build on his strengths every season in the claret and blue. This game is going to be very tough to predict, with two sides needing a win to kick their seasons off realistically, but I think Spurs' strength will be strong enough to see them through. My prediction for the final score, Tottenham 2, West Ham 0. Our fourth and final headliner game once again turns our attention to the Championship, with two sides who exited Game Week 1 undefeated. It is Huddersfield Town taking on Coventry City. Unlike the Premier League, who only had 2 games to contend with, our Championship sides have had 4 games, meaning an undefeated record is definitely not something to be taken light-hearted. Let's firstly take a look at the visitors Coventry, who of course celebrated a very successful first week in OVFM. They are managed by long-time member JVS, who looked very strong after Game Week 1, securing a record of 2 wins and 2 draws, including a very impressive 6-2 win over fellow headliners this week, Swansea City. Looking at the Sky Blue side itself, they have made various acquisitions over the transfer window, with the headliner without a doubt being Hwang Hee-chan in from Wolves for £13 million. All in all, Coventry looks strong, and I'll be interested to see what they can do this season. Now, looking over at Huddersfield, who are without a doubt one of the stories of the first game week here in OVFM, securing a 100% record of 4 wins straight. Along with Stoke, they are the only team to have managed this season in the Championship so far. And as a result of goal difference, currently see themselves on the top of the Championship, with 13 goals scored and just 2 conceded. The Terriers, without a doubt, main attraction seems to be former Manchester City talent Jack Grealish, who they bought for a very competitive price of just £26 million. Despite this, the goals seem to be coming from the main man up front, Emmanuel Dennis, who came over for a hell of a lot less from the Hornets, only £1 million in from Watford. The Terriers so far look like the side to beat, though the question is, can they hold off a positive start in Coventry? Well, Huddersfield do look on a roll, and I believe they will take Coventry's unbeaten record. The score prediction here, I'm going for a whopping Huddersfield 3, Coventry City 0. Well, let's now take this opportunity to look at the league tables across both the Premier League and the Championship. Well, that concludes the OVFM report of Game Week 2. 4 unmissable games and a sign that the season is well and truly on a roll. My name has been Jack London, and that was your OVFM report.